Now this next slide, I'm not going to read that whole thing, so don't panic. I will pick and choose. This was the result of the 405th Fighter Group. That's 36 P-47s. In less than 1 year, we destroyed 6,289 motor transports. That's big trucks. 358 battle tanks, 840 locomotives, 4,410 railroad cars, 27 bridges, 237 artillery positions, 23 fuel and ammunition dumps, 9 airplane hangars, 798 factories and buildings. Now when they wrote that, they're not talking General Motors. These are little cottage industry type stuff, but that's still a pretty good number to wipe out. We'll skip on down. We cut 748 railroads, sunk 61 vessels, some ships and some barges, blew out 234 marshalling yards and 240 enemy airplanes on the ground that never got into the air. In that year's time, we expended 6 million, I've forgotten the number. Anyway, that's all right.
It's
we
the next slide.
expended 6 million, 166,000 rounds of that ammunition, dropped 4,633 tons of bombs, lost 125 of our airplanes in the process, and had 700 instances where airplanes came back badly damaged, but they made it back. All in all, we were a pretty destructive bunch of people. So that was our World War II activity. Now, I've got a little story to tell you that in a smaller group, I allow this to travel around the crowd, but I don't want to do that tonight. But I want to show you. This is a personal affair. We were strafing a truck convoy one day, and I shot at the trucks and pulled out of the dive and turned like that, and I'm maybe 200 feet above the German trucks down there. And looking down as I went over, saw a German soldier swing his rifle. I felt a bullet hit. Well, I wasn't bleeding and I didn't hurt anywhere, so I just kept shooting till the ammunition was gone, and got back and told my crew chief, Jones, I think I got hit. He said, yeah, you did. There was a hole in the side of the airplane, and we found that bullet embedded in the side of my parachute about 1 inch behind my back, which is why I felt it. It's an interesting bullet. It's an 8mm copper jacket, probably used by snipers. But what's interesting about it, it's made of aluminum. Now, bullets are supposed to be lead, you understand? But you see, the Germans were having problems moving their supplies around because we were up there tearing up their trucks and trains. So that's probably a melted down, crashed airplane. You see pictures of anti-aircraft fire in the sky that look like black puffs of cotton up there. That ain't cotton. Each of those black puffs is either an 88mm anti-aircraft shell exploding, or sometimes 105mm, which are even bigger. When they explode, they break up into chunks of steel like this. That thing came through the side of my airplane, right there beside my shoulder, and stopped right there in the instrument panel. If you examine it, it appears to have aluminum embedded in it. I knew they didn't make cannon shells out of aluminum, so I asked a sergeant in the artillery, what is that? He said, well, when that thing came through the side of your plane, it was white hot. It just picked up aluminum as it went by. So I have part of my airplane permanently enshrined in steel. All right. Now, I was a commercial artist. After the war, our intelligence officer, who was by that time a printing salesman for a big printer up in Minneapolis, and he had big accounts like Alice Chalmers and Caterpillar Tractor, all that. So we decided to produce a history book of our squadron. We got it just for the cost of the paper, otherwise we couldn't have afforded it. And we found all the guys we could find. We've got their picture then and now with their family history and all that on each page. On the page where we showed our killed in action guys, I wrote a poem which read this way. In fighter planes they flew with us, these gallant men with silver wings. Brothers all through hostile skies, a peaceful world we sought to bring. Then flame from hell lanced upward, the air was ripped by jagged steel, and terror was the major thing that each of us could feel. All knew in such a frenzied sky that some of us would not survive. Yet their guns with ours erupting fire, into the face of death we died. The gods of war by random choice called these young men to flame and die. We saw them spin like shattered hawks, but in memory still they share our sky. And now a silent, ghostly echelon of faithful comrades from the past will fly our wings in close formation till all our squadrons still at last. So that's the end of my story. Portfolio. Let's see if I brought a picture with me. Okay, I'm not sure I wrote it, but maybe I did. No, I did. Okay. How many of you know what a P-63 King Cobra looks like? Okay, I got enough of you here. The P-63 King Cobra had a 1,750 horsepower Allison engine behind the pilot. A drive shaft ran up between his legs to the gearbox in the nose, and a 37mm cannon fired through the spinner. The RP-63 model, they took that cannon out of the thing, took the cannon out and put a neon light in there. The airplane had bulletproof glass around the cockpit. The pilot sat in kind of a steel bathtub. There were heavy metal on the leading edge of the wings, and the air intakes, that's an Allison liquid-cooled engine. The air intakes were in the leading edge of the wing, right near the fuselage, and there were baffles in there. They shot at us with frangible bullets, 30 caliber frangible bullets. Now, the people shooting at us were the gunners in the bombers. This was a gunnery training base at Yuma, Arizona. We fighter pilots flew the target airplanes. We would make a simulated attack on a formation of two bombers and come in and they'd shoot at us. They could tell they were hitting with that light in the nose blinking, so I would call it a pinball machine. And we'd come down and make our pass and duck under them and come up the other way and go back and forth like that. So all the gunners get a shot at us. Each gunner had his own colored ammunition, red, yellow, blue, green, black, whatever. We would keep making passes until the bomber commander would call and say, okay, we're all out of ammo, let's go down. And then we would go back down and land. The gunners would come over and count the colored streaks on the skin of the airplane, so each gunner knew how many times he hit you. Well, I made my pass at him one day and ducked under and came up the other side. And the bomber commander called and said, you got a steam plume behind you. Well, I knew what happened. There's a hole in the radiator. And a 1,250 horsepower, 1,750 horsepower engine isn't going to run long without coolant. So I was about 20,000 feet, and I called the tower and told them I had a problem. Would they please clear the traffic pattern, which they did. And I started down there and just kept an eye on the temperature gauge, and when she started to heat up, I just shut the engine down and glided on in and landed with no further problem. But as far as I know, I'm the only guy that ever got shot down in Arizona. When the bomber commander would call and tell us, let's go down, I'd get up, the bombers would be here, and I'd get up pretty high behind them and open that throttle wide open and come screaming down like that and come up under them and roll out in front of them this way, just to let them see what a real airplane would do. But a straight and level bomber is not much fun.